The House will be in order. The chair lays before the House a communication from the Speaker.
The Speaker's Rooms, Washington, D.C., February 4th, 2026. I hereby appoint the Honorable Tracy Mann to act as Speaker pro tempore on this day. Signed, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House of Representatives.
Pursuant to the order of the House of January 6, 2026, the chair will now recognize members from lists submitted by the majority and minority leaders for morning hour debate. The chair will alternate recognition between the parties with time equally allocated between the parties and each member other than the majority and minority leaders and the minority whip limited to 5 minutes, but in no event shall debate continue beyond 11:50 a.m. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Kennedy, for 5 minutes. The gentleman from,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to condemn Islamophobia in the United States, an alarming and dangerous trend that goes against the most basic values of our country. Hatred and religious discrimination don't make us safer, stronger, or more united. They do just the opposite. When fear and division are used by people in power, families in our communities are the ones who pay the price. When national leaders single out and demonize an entire faith or culture, it tells people that intolerance is acceptable, that cruelty is strength. Too often, the loudest voices of hate hear that signal clearly. And across our country, Muslim Americans are feeling that impact. Mosques have been threatened, families have been profiled, children have been made to feel like they don't belong in the only country they've ever known. It's wrong, it's unjust, and it's profoundly un-American. As members of Congress, we have a responsibility to stand up for fairness, freedom, and basic decency, because Islamophobia has real consequences. Families are afraid to report crimes, workers lose opportunities, students feel isolated, and American citizens are treated differently because of how they pray, how they dress, or where their parents were born. In Western New York, from Buffalo to Niagara Falls to the city of Lackawanna and everywhere in between, we know what it means to face discrimination, hate, and division, and we know the power of standing together united. My district is home to one of the largest Arab American communities in the country. Families came here for the same promise as generations before them, to build a better future for themselves and their children. They believe in the American dream. Neighbors in the city of Lackawanna came together in an act of love for the community and created Access of Western New York. Access helps families in crisis, supports young people, and gives immigrants and non-immigrants alike the tools they need to get on their feet. They bring people together instead of pushing them apart. That's what America looks like at its best. At a time when division feels constant, Western New York shows there's another way forward, one rooted in respect, compassion, and shared humanity. We all have a choice. We can allow hate to grow, or we can stand up and say it has no place here. I choose to stand against Islamophobia, and I urge my colleagues and all Americans to do the same. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Luttrell, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and honor an extraordinary public servant, a trusted leader and dear friend, my Chief of Staff, Ms. Christina Lee, who is actually retiring after a distinguished career in public service. And in this chamber, we often speak about policy, votes, and headlines, but behind every office, behind every member, there are people whose work rarely show up in congressional record. People who make the institution function, who keep the mission on course, and who serve quietly with excellence every single day. For years, she has been the steady hand guiding our office. She brought clarity when things were complicated, calm when things were chaotic, and purpose when the days were long. She understood that public service isn't about credit, it's about responsibility. And she carried that responsibility with integrity, discipline, and grace. As Chief of Staff, she did far more than manage schedules and operations. She shaped culture. She built a team that worked hard, treated people with respect, and never lost sight of why we're here, to serve the American people, and especially the veterans and families who depend on us. She has an uncommon ability to see both the big picture and the smallest details. She could navigate complex legislative strategy while never forgetting the constituent on the other end of the phone who just needed help. That balance, the human side of governance, paired with professional excellence, is rare, and that's what made her indispensable. In moments of pressure, she was unflappable. In moments of disagreement, she brought thoughtfulness, and in moments of decision, she was always guided by principle. I have relied on her judgment more times than I can count, and when I needed honest counsel, she gave it, and when it wasn't easy, when the offices needed leadership, she stepped forward without hesitation, and when the mission demanded long hours and personal sacrifice, she never asked for recognition. She simply got the job done. That kind of leadership doesn't happen by accident. It comes with character, from experience, and from a deep belief in service before self. Her impact extends well beyond my office. She has mentored young staffers who will go on to serve in Congress, the executive branch, and communities across the country. Her legacy lives on in the people she has trained, the standards she has set, and the examples she modeled every day. Public service is often described as thankless, and too often the people who give the most receive the least public recognition, and today we correct that. Ms. Lee has helped shape legislation, support veterans, solve real problems for real people, and strengthen this institution. She has done so with professionalism, humility, and unwavering commitment. And on behalf of the constituents of the Texas 8th Congressional District, on behalf of my staff, and on behalf of a member of Congress, I want to say thank you. Chris, your service has mattered. Your leadership has made a difference, and your example will continue to guide us long after you step away from this role. And as you begin the next chapter of your life, know that you leave with our deepest respect, our sincere gratitude, and our very best wishes. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Garcia, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of Rick Garcia, a giant in the fight for equality in Illinois. I met Rick in the 1980s when being out, visible, and unapologetic came with real risk. We used to call each other primo, or cousin, because we shared the same last name. Rick believed that change didn't happen by accident and worked across political, religious, and community lines to build unlikely coalitions. He helped pass Illinois' landmark ban on discrimination based on sexual orientation. As a co-founder of Equality Illinois, Rick fought to ensure that love and identity are never grounds for discrimination. Rick's legacy lives on in the movements he helped build and the laws he helped pass, which are now as important as ever. May we honor his legacy in action. Rest in power, Rick. I yield back. Mr. Speaker, the price of groceries keeps going up. And starting this week, 4 million people per month will be pushed off their food stamps. In Illinois alone, 360,000 people will lose those benefits, all due to cuts from the big, ugly bill. Americans are being forced to go hungry as the president can pay for his terror campaign in our cities. Children, people with disabilities, and veterans will lose their ability to put food on the table. Food pantries are already seeing longer lines for services. Local grocers warn that this will impact them too, as people will be unable to shop for food. SNAP benefits are not just a safety net, they also foster economic activity and community stability. The president has made his priorities clear by cutting food assistance for millions of Americans to fund his agenda while families are pushed closer to hunger. They can lie, tell us to ignore what we see and experience, but the American people will not forget. I yield back.
Back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Arrington, for 5 minutes.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, my Democrat colleagues, maybe not all of them, but what I just heard was a complete mischaracterization of the program integrity measures that Republicans put in the big, beautiful bill. And while the fraud, waste, and abuse is on display for all Americans, not only in Minnesota, but all across this country, we find it unacceptable. We believe that one of our first responsibilities here in the People's House is to steward the people's sacred treasure. And what we did was we put financial controls, anti-fraud measures, and again, program integrity reforms so that people who need these safety net programs can avail themselves, and they will not be drained anymore by people who are illegally in this country, ineligible, or who are able-bodied adults who just simply refuse to work. That's all. I mean, I think that's as we say, an 80-20 issue in this country. So no, people aren't starving and being thrown into the streets with no support who need it. We are protecting and preserving not only the tax dollar, but these important, critical safety net services for the American people who are eligible. And I'm grateful for that leadership from the president and from my Republican colleagues. And I can't imagine that most Democrats throughout this country actually support us protecting their tax dollars too. Now, Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor a true West Texas giant and American hero, Mr. J.L. Stevens of Big Spring, USA, a World War II veteran who just turned 100 years old this past week. He is a living monument to the grit, courage, and quiet humility and service that define both West Texas and America's greatest generation. In 1943, at just 17 years old, Mr. Speaker, this gentleman enlisted in the United States Navy, serving as a gunner's mate aboard the USS Hamilton, where he directly engaged the enemy on D-Day while supporting the Allied invasion of Normandy. Despite suffering combat injuries in Europe, Mr. Stevens continued his service, which concluded in 1945 in the Pacific Theater, where he personally witnessed the signing of the Japanese Instrument of Surrender in Tokyo Harbor, bringing World War II to its official end. After the war, Mr. Stevens returned to his home in West Texas, where he worked as a carpenter, helping to build the firehouse there in Big Spring and the city's original VA hospital. Mr. Speaker, Mr. J.L. Stevens represents the very best of West Texas in his heroic service to our country and a lifetime of hard work, faith, and devotion to his family, to his community, and to this great country of ours. I ask my colleagues to join me in wishing him a happy 100th birthday and thanking him for a legacy of service that will long endure. Mr. Stevens, here's to many more. God bless you and God bless America.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes a gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Macbeth, for 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, or Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this week began Black History Month. As second vice chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, I am proud to rise and put proper emphasis on this important annual recognition. All month long, I will be working to amplify the stories of notable Black Americans from Georgia's 6th Congressional District, and today I am particularly honored to kick off my constituent recognitions by sharing the story of a truly exceptional American. Dr. Hilliard Pouncey, Jr. was a student, a research scientist, and a beloved father and grandfather. But perhaps most notably, he was one of the original Tuskegee Airmen during World War II. Dr. Pouncey's accomplishments in life seem almost too extraordinary to be true. Born in Pritchard, Alabama, Hilliard lived with his grandparents to support them for many years of his childhood, a glimpse of what life was like before the advent of Social Security. In segregated Alabama, he navigated the obstacles required to receive an education. Hilliard had to travel to a neighboring county in order to complete his high school education. This didn't faze Hilliard. He finished as the valedictorian of his class. After high school, he went to Tuskegee in search of work and the furtherance of his education. After seeing black cadets march on campus and watching them fly airplanes, Hilliard said he just knew he would become a Tuskegee Airman. He loved the look of their uniforms and the promise of what kind of doors could be unlocked as a Tuskegee Airman. Through advanced training, Bombardier School and navigation training, Hilliard witnessed and experienced firsthand the obstacles and the challenges that men of color faced, even as some of the most highly skilled members of our nation's armed forces. Again, this did not faze him. He trained as a bombardier with the 477th Bombardment Group, and he was part of the remarkable history of the Tuskegee Airmen. Following his military service, Dr. Pouncey earned advanced degrees in chemistry, obtaining a PhD in organic chemistry. He enjoyed a long and distinguished career as a research scientist with Union Carbide, which took him all over the world. In retirement, Dr. Pouncey and his late wife, Ms. Maddie, retired to Austell, right in the heart of Georgia's 6th Congressional District. As a beloved resident at Presbyterian Village, he always took time to give back to his fellow residents and school children in our community. Dr. Pouncey passed away just before Christmas at the ripe age of 103. At his memorial service, I was struck by the stories that I heard of what a devoted public servant he remained long after he retired. Dr. Hilliard Pouncey truly represented the very, very best of us. Our nation has come a very long way since the days of Jim Crow, and I marvel at the progress of our American life seen through the eyes of a man, a truly original American citizen, the man of Hilliard Pouncey. And I yield.
Gentlewoman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Washington, Mr. Baumgartner, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize the 1984 Walla Walla High School girls basketball team and to celebrate their long overdue recognition of their state championship victory. The 1979 and 1984 Walla Walla High School girls teams remain the only state basketball champions in WaHi history. Yet for more than 4 decades, the 1984 champion team had no victory cup to mark their achievement. What began as a casual conversation last spring has turned into a long-awaited correction of that injustice. This Saturday, after 42 years, the 1984 team will finally be recognized with a ceremony and the presentation of a specifically made championship trophy. These remarkable women represent the best of our communities: perseverance, teamwork, and pride that will stand the test of time. And now, finally, they will have a victory cup to recognize their significant achievement. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to give a shout out to the Walla Walla Union Bulletin for covering this story, a reminder that while we can sometimes be frustrated with the way media covers things politically, we always appreciate a local news source for these types of stories. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the Driver and Lindsay families of Pomeroy County, whose century-long story tells the very best of rural America: perseverance, hard work, and renewal. Their history stretches from a hand-built homestead in the 1920s through decades of loss and reclamation to today's 800-acre hay operation that continues to be an anchor in their community. This year marks 3 remarkable milestones: 100 years since the original home was built, 80 years since the farm was reclaimed, and 20 years since the current operation began. The Driver and Lindsay families embody stewardship and resilience. They have tilled the same soil for generations, adopting through challenge and change and ensuring this family legacy. Pictured right to the right of me today is one of the fifth generation of the Drivers family, and we know that he has much to look forward to as he builds his community on this wonderful family farm. Mr. Speaker, I rise to celebrate the 145th anniversary of the Spokane Tribe of Indians, a proud milestone honoring one of the Eastern Washington's oldest and most resilient communities. The Spokane Tribe recently hosted its 1881 powwow near Wellpennant, bringing together families, dancers, and community members to mark this anniversary with song, dance, and fellowship. The day was filled with vibrant drumming, traditional ceremonies, and shared meals that reflected the enduring spirit of the tribe. As the American flag and the Spokane Tribe flag flew side by side, this celebration stood as a powerful symbol of unity, resilience, and the living heritage that continues to enrich the inland Northwest. Mr. Speaker, I am not a native tribal member myself, but growing up in Eastern Washington, I did have time to play basketball with the Nez Perce tribe of Indians in Lapway, close to my family home, and on several occasions was able to join and observe powwows. And if any of you in Congress or watching at home have not had the opportunity to attend a powwow, it truly is one of the best celebrations of our shared culture and history, and something that all Americans should attempt to do as we celebrate our 250th anniversary. But I'd close by again congratulating the Spokane Tribe of Indians on their leadership, tradition, and community pride. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back, and the chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Latimer, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, in the ever-changing landscape of community media, I am pleased to salute the 17th anniversary of the launch of Scarsdale 105.83, the online source for local news and information in the village of Scarsdale and in the neighborhoods of Hartsdale and Edgemont in the town of Greenburgh. Joanne Wallenstein, an advertising and marketing professional with a background in magazines and internet experience, is the driving force for this team that includes Wendy McMillan and Stacy Waldman. All three are committed Scarsdale volunteers for organizations like the local PTAs, the League of Women Voters, and numerous other community groups. This gives them the grassroots contact and the feel for what's happening every day that they report on regularly. And they report on what's happening by being there, in person, at event after event. The publication is truly local: high school sports stories, local meetings, recreational activities, neighborhood associations, and their activities. We recognize the hard work of Joanne and her colleagues, and from the floor of the House of Representatives, we salute this terrific effort to bring the whole of the community together. Mr. Speaker, I want to recognize the outstanding programs provided by the Village of Dobbs Ferry that benefit the senior citizens of that community. Under the able leadership of Abby Connett, in a new center designed for their use, the Dobbs Ferry Seniors serves hundreds of seniors annually with a daily nutrition program at lunchtime, 5 days a week, and activities and programs to engage seniors of all ages. There are fitness classes daily, from Tai Chi and dance to chair yoga, and mental fitness programs, my favorite, sports trivia, and a variety of board games, Mahjong, Bridge, Rummy Cube, along with the classic senior staple, bingo. Abby and her talented crew host annual events such as an art show in May and the recent 20th annual Seniors Week in October with multiple activities. There are trips planned to shopping locales and tourist sites as well. From the floor of the House of Representatives, we salute the work of the Dobbs Ferry seniors, the active and energetic members who show that age is more than just a state of mind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the outstanding work of the residents of the Bronx, who labor tirelessly on behalf of their neighborhood, active in Bronx Community Board Number 10. Most of the area is represented by my colleague, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, places like Throgs Neck, Pelham Bay, Westchester Square, and the like. But Community Board 10 also includes the major complex of Co-op City in my 16th Congressional District. Co-op City benefits from the leadership of Joseph Russo, chairman of the Community Board, and the excellent district manager, Matt Cruz. Co-op City residents on Community Board 10 include Board Secretary Nancy Rosario, Stephanie Woods, who chairs the Youth and Education Committee, and board members Janine Thomas, Stephanie Hazel, and Maritza Flood. The board has vibrant citizen committees engaged in every aspect of neighborhood life: economic development, housing and zoning, municipal services, parks and recreation, planning and budget, youth services and education, health and human services, and veteran services, with board members and community volunteers engaged together in dialogue and in action to serve the overall region. I'm pleased that Co-op City is a major contributor to the work of this board. From the floor of the House of Representatives, we salute Bronx Community Board 10 and its crew from Co-op City, serving the Boogie Down Bronx. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Lawler, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to recognize the extraordinary service and well-earned retirement of Cardinal Timothy Michael Dolan, whose leadership has profoundly shaped the Catholic faith in New York and across our nation. Since becoming Archbishop of New York in 2009, Cardinal Dolan has been a steadfast advocate for religious freedom, Catholic education, and the dignity of every person. He has led with both conviction and compassion and humor, reminding us that faith must always be lived out through service. Under his leadership, the Archdiocese of New York was strengthened in meaningful ways, including the reopening of dozens of Catholic schools, ensuring that families across our state continue to have access to education rooted in faith, values, and community. Beyond New York, Cardinal Dolan has become a respected national voice for the Church, guiding conversations with clarity, humor, and grace, and bringing people together in moments of challenge and celebration alike. I am honored to call Cardinal Dolan a friend. While he will be deeply missed as the leader of the Archdiocese of New York, I wish him the very best in his retirement and have no doubt that his voice and his witness will continue to inspire for years to come. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of Alfred Al Magnatta, who passed away just a week before what would have been his 101st birthday. At a young age, Al answered the call to serve his country during World War II, enlisting in the U.S. Air Force. Serving as a B-17 aerial gunner with the 8th Air Force was an experience that forever shaped his life. After returning home to New York, Al continued to serve his community by joining the Congress Fire Department, eventually serving as their fire chief, becoming the oldest fire chief in the department's history and its longest-serving member. Al continued to serve his community by providing leadership at the county level, helping guide emergency response efforts, mentoring future firefighters, and shaping fire service standards. Throughout his decades of service, he responded to countless emergencies and earned the respect of all who served alongside him. Al represented the very best of our community, and I extend my heartfelt condolences to his family, friends, and all who had the privilege of knowing him. His legacy will never be forgotten. May he rest in peace. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize an extraordinary act of courage and public service by Ramapo Town Police Chief Daniel Dan Hyman, whose quick actions saved the life of a fellow neighbor. While off duty, Chief Hyman noticed smoke coming from a home, and after seeing a resident attempt to escape the fire, he immediately sprang into action. Without hesitation, he secured a ladder, climbed to the window the resident was attempting to escape from, and calmly coached the individual to safety. His quick thinking, bravery, and selfless action helped save a life from what would have been a tragedy. Chief Hyman joined the Ramapo Police Department in 1989 and has served his community with integrity, valor, and professionalism for more than 3 decades. His actions represent the very best of public service and our community. I commend Chief Hyman for leading by example and for reminding us what true heroism looks like in our communities. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the extraordinary career of Robbie Schlaff, a devoted public servant who has spent her career protecting women, children, and families across Westchester County. Since 2013, Robbie has served as director of the Westchester County Office for Women, overseeing critical programs that support victims of domestic and family violence. She also serves as executive director of the Westchester County Family Justice Center, where she helped build a coordinated, victim-centered model that has become a statewide example. Earlier in her career, Robbie practiced family law, representing children and survivors of domestic violence, and served as a mediator in family court. She has been instrumental in developing initiatives such as the Domestic Violence High Risk Team and the PACE Women's Justice Center, earning national recognition, including the End Violence Against Women International Game Changer Award. In addition, she worked alongside Pete Granis in the New York State Assembly and the Department of Environmental Protection. As Robbie retires from her role, I am proud to recognize her unwavering commitment to protecting our communities, and having worked with her in County Executive Astorino's administration, I am deeply grateful for her public service and her friendship, and I wish her all the best in her well-earned retirement. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Sonoris, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, as every local business owner knows, every penny counts, especially during the holiday season. Elsa Dunez, owner of Paradise Gym in San Dimas, took this busy and valuable time to use their business to give back to the community by organizing a month-long fundraiser and toy drive to support the children and families of City of Hope, one of the largest cancer research and treatment hospitals in the United States. Paradise Gym encouraged patrons and community members to donate new toys to children and their families, sharing the message that donating toys not only gives joy, but offers hope to those navigating cancer treatment and care for their loved ones. The support and community of Southern California is unlike any other, and I'm so proud to see our neighbors come together and give back. This is a true testament to the character of Paradise Gym and the power of community and service. Thank you to Elsa and the staff at Paradise Gym for your commitment to service. We are so grateful for you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to acknowledge an outstanding accomplishment of Roromere Elementary School in La Puente, California, of the Roland Unified School District in California's 31st District. Roromere Elementary has been designated as a 2026 Seal of Excellence School by the California Association of Bilingual Education, one of only 4 schools in California awarded this designation, after undergoing an extensive review process. This award recognizes schools for their strong vision for biliteracy, multicultural competency, and educational equity. As a Spanish dual language immersion school, Roromere Elementary has demonstrated notable gains in academic achievement and bilingual proficiency among English learners using effective research-based instructional strategies. Roromere Elementary's success has been built through creation of a school-wide culture that embraces and celebrates developing students, bilingual language proficiency, and cultural awareness in grades TK through 6. The strong relationship built between Roromere's teachers, staff, and families has been central to the school's success. Congratulations to the team at Roromere Elementary for setting an amazing example for bilingual education. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize former Laverne Fire Chief Christopher Nigg for his distinguished time of service with the Laverne Fire Department. While in service at the department, he led significant operational and organizational advancements, strengthening emergency response, workforce readiness, and regional integration. Chief Nigg worked collaboratively with regional partners to enhance service and response delivery, fostering a culture of professionalism, trust, and shared accountability focused on serving the community. Notably, he led the department to streamline emergency response with an efficient ambulance operator program and establish a comprehensive succession plan for long-term organizational stability. I am so grateful for his leadership and service promoting safety for the community in California's 31st District. He will be remembered as a team player, fierce advocate for fire prevention, and as an innovator leader. We wish him the best in the next chapter of his life. Mr. Speaker, 2026 marks the 100th anniversary of the most famous road in the country, Route 66, and it travels right through the 31st Congressional District in California. Last month, the city of Azusa unveiled its Route 66 Centennial Monument and mural at the newly designated Route 66 Tribute Corner in honor of this historic highway. This new mural and monument is part of a series of monuments that will be unveiled from Chicago to Santa Monica. It's part of the official project organized by the U.S. Route 66 Centennial Commission. Mr. Speaker, we are excited that many will continue to get their kicks on Route 66 as we celebrate this historic highway that connected our community to the rest of the country and opened up a pathway for migration, tourism, and the development in the San Gabriel Valley and the great state of California. With that, I yield back.
Back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Thompson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate an organization that is near and dear to my heart, Scouting America. February 8th is National Scouting America Day, which recognizes the legacy of the organization and the young Americans who have gone from scouts to leaders in their communities. On May 17th, 1977, I became an Eagle Scout, myself as a member of Scout Troop 52 in Walker Township, Pennsylvania. Over the years, I've proudly held various leadership roles with Scout troops in Pennsylvania, including 2 separate stints as Scoutmaster for Troop 353 in Howard. During my time as Scoutmaster, I was honored to see many young men achieve the rank of Eagle Scout. Since the rank's inception, close to 3 million Scouts have earned Eagle Scout status. Scouting America, formerly known as the Boy Scouts of America, and actually it's still the name of the movement as chartered by Congress, was established in 1910 by William D. Boyce. The mission of the organization is to prepare children for lives of impact and purpose. Since it was founded, more than 130 million young men and women have participated in Scouting America's programs. Mr. Speaker, at its core, Scouting encourages its members to leave our country and the world a little better than what they found it. Scouting America has helped build future leaders by combining educational activities and lifelong values with fun. Scouting founder, Lord Baden-Powell of England, defined Scouting as a game with a purpose. And through over a century of experience knows that helping youth is a key to building a more conscientious, responsible, and productive society. Now, I'm proud to co-chair the Congressional Scouting Caucus. This past summer, we welcomed dozens of Scouts from across the country to Camp Capitol Hill and Eagles on the Hill. This was an opportunity for Scouts to meet with representatives and showcase what they've learned or built as a Scout. It was an honor to see the various projects Scouts have completed. All of them demonstrated the important values of service, community, and character. Scouting demands physicality, innovation, curiosity, and for participants to enjoy the outdoors. It gives Scouts the opportunity to try new recreational activities like mountain biking, kayaking, and camping. All these activities are owed to the beautiful landscapes across our nation, an experience that a Scout will never forget. Scouts explore their interests and improve their skills while working towards Scouting's highest rank, Eagle. By first imagining, planning, then doing their own service projects, Scouts learn the value of hard work and the experience, the thrill of seeing it pay off. Scouts are known as leaders within their communities. Approximately 15% of all military academy cadets and midshipmen across the United States service academies are Eagle Scouts. And I'm grateful for the longstanding partnership between Scouting America and the Department of War. I can think of no better recruitment tool for our military than the lessons learned through Scouting. Mr. Speaker, Scouting has touched the lives of so many, and I'm proud of the way it has shaped our youth. Happy 116th birthday, Scouting America. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back the balance.
Gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Maine, Ms. Pingree, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today because of something deeply troubling that is happening to one of the most treasured cultural institutions in our country, the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. And yes, it is the John F. Kennedy Center. Over the weekend, the president announced, on Truth Social, of course, that he intends to shut down the Kennedy Center for approximately 2 years for so-called renovations. Since then, he's talked about leaving the building's steel fully exposed, raising questions about whether this is a renovation at all or something far more drastic. Let's take a step back. The Kennedy Center is not a private real estate project. It's not a campaign prop. It's not a vanity playground for demolition. It is a national cultural institution created by Congress in 1958 and later dedicated to President John F. Kennedy after his death. It opened in 1971 as a living memorial to a man who believed the arts were essential to democracy itself. The name, the mission, the existence all come from statute, law. And no social media post, no board reshuffle, no personal declaration has the legal authority to change that. For more than 50 years, the Kennedy Center has been a place where Americans of every background could come together to experience excellence in music, theater, dance, and culture. It was built to foster national unity, artistic expression, and America's creative spirit, not to feed the ego of a single individual. Unfortunately, over the past year, we've watched the systematic takeover. Board members fired, loyalists installed, programming politicized, and artists walking away in droves. The consequences were immediate. Though Donald Trump's hand-picked leadership has been suspiciously tight-lipped about the center's finances, they reportedly oversaw an 82% decline in theater subscriptions, a 57% drop in ballet packages, and a $1.6 million loss in ticket sales in just a matter of months. The decline was not because the buildings suddenly become dangerous. It is because artists and audiences rejected what the Kennedy Center has been becoming. And now, rather than reverse course, the president's solution is to close it for 2 years? According to reporting this week, many board members, staff, performers, and even Trump-appointed officials were blindsided by this announcement. There is no plan presented, no consultation, no transparency. The New York Times reports that budget documents describe needed maintenance, yes, but nothing that required shutting down the entire institution. In fact, the very official overseeing facilities said that just 2 months ago, there were no serious discussions about closing the center. So what changed? What changed is that the center could no longer sustain programming. Artists were pulling out. Performances were being canceled. Ticket sales were collapsing. With every bad story detailing what the center has become under President Trump's control, the more of a headache and source of embarrassment it became for the president. So now this renovation begins to look less like infrastructure work and more like a cover story for institutional failure. As the top Democrat of the Appropriations Subcommittee that oversees the Kennedy Center's funding, I can tell you this. We have repeatedly asked for financial information, for meetings, for transparency about what is happening inside the center. Our requests have been ignored. That should alarm every member of this body, because this is not just about a building. It is about whether Congress is going to allow a president to seize control of a congressionally created institution, run it into the ground, then unilaterally shut it down without oversight. Sadly, this is part of a much broader pattern. We have seen this administration's attacks on the National Endowment for the Arts, their attacks on the National Endowment for the Humanities, their interference in museums, including the Smithsonian, their political litmus test for cultural programming, and now the attempted transformation of the Kennedy Center into a monument to one man's personal brand. The Kennedy Center is the only memorial in Washington dedicated to President John F. Kennedy, a president who believed that art belonged to the American people, a president who believed culture was a public good. This takeover and the incompetence that's come with it is an insult to that legacy. The law is very clear. The Kennedy Center's name and mission are established by statute. Changing that requires
time has expired.
an act of Congress, and I will do everything in my power to make sure this institution stays the way it is. Thank you.
Gentlewoman yield back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Joyce, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to commend President Trump
for taking decisive action to confront one of the most devastating public health challenges that currently face our nation, the disease of addiction. With the launch of the Great American Recovery Initiative, President Trump is elevating our national response by coordinating federal, state, and community resources. This action by President Trump will expand access to treatment, to prevention, to long-term recovery, and support millions of Americans and their families. This initiative recognizes what addiction truly is, a chronic, treatable condition. This comprehensive effort reflects a shared American value that every life is worth saving and every individual struggling with addiction deserves a path to recovery. According to data collected in 2023, nearly 5,000 Pennsylvanians lost their lives due to fatal drug overdoses. That means that across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we lost 14 lives each day to addiction. Under the leadership of President Trump, I look forward to working with my colleagues here in Congress to support this initiative and ensure that it delivers real results for the families and those suffering with addiction across our country. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to celebrate the 90th birthday of Sister Paula Del Grosso. Sister Paula's religious vocation began in the 1950s, and after spending more than 30 years in education, she heard a different calling, a calling to serve her community in another way. She worked to establish the St. Vincent de Paul Food for Families Soup Kitchen. Sister Paula has worked with community leaders, with service organizations and supporters to operate the soup kitchen. And now, for more than 3 decades, she has lived her faith by feeding the hungry. As one of Sister Paula's many volunteers, I witnessed firsthand her commitment and her passion to serving her community. On her 90th birthday, I thank Sister Paula for her dedication and her devotion for those in need. Happy birthday, Sister Paula. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor George Lake of Huntington County, Pennsylvania, as the first recipient of the Pennsylvania Veteran Ag Entrepreneurship Award. After completing his service in the U.S. Marine Corps, George took the responsibility of owning the Thistle Creek Farms in Warriors Mark. George has transformed his family's 600-acre farm into a nationally recognized regenerative livestock operation which produces a premium beef brand. Motivated to help owners of small farms succeed, George also devotes time to mentoring fellow beef farmers. Thank you, George Lake. Thank you for your military service, and congratulations on receiving the Pennsylvania Veteran Ag Entrepreneurship Award. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the 75th anniversary of the de Gaulle Organization, which is headquartered in Altoona, Pennsylvania. The origins of the family-owned and operated enterprise date to 1950, when Bruno and Lena de Gaulle purchased a masonry plant in Cambria County. Today, the de Gaulle Organization includes 7D Wholesale, de Gaulle Carpet, 7D Window and Door, Hollidaysburg Rail Car Services, and the Scotch Valley Country Club. In addition to driving economic growth and facilitating job creation, the de Gaulle Organization has supported communities through the Bruno and Lena de Gaulle Family Foundation. The foundation's philanthropy has funded numerous capital improvement projects, education initiatives, and nonprofit programs. With a distinguished legacy of leadership, I congratulate the entire de Gaulle family on this milestone anniversary and offer best wishes for continued success. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to sound an alarm. To sound an alarm about something dangerous and dark and pernicious that is happening inside our government. And I recognize there are only a handful of my colleagues in the chamber to hear that alarm, a few folks in the gallery. but I pray that Americans writ large will hear it. George Orwell, in his famous book 1984, wrote of a time when the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. His warning proved prescient because today, the Trump administration asks the American people to ignore what they see with their own eyes and what they hear with their own ears, which is the complete corruption of their government from the inside out. The Trump administration's pay-to-play schemes are literally ripping off hardworking American taxpayers as we speak. We see the evidence everywhere. A $10 billion payout that Donald Trump, the President of the United States of America, now demands from his own Treasury Department in a lawsuit that he filed against the IRS. And by the way, who does he demand pay him this $10 billion? The American taxpayer. Countless pay-to-play schemes, vanity projects that have consumed his administration, all paid by American taxpayers. They are stripping the pocketbooks of Americans to line their own. Last weekend, The New Yorker reported that the president and his family have raked in $4 billion in personal profits by leveraging the presidency. Think about that, $4 billion. And you know, the most salient example of this, by the way, we just learned about in the last 7 days. An expose by the Wall Street Journal about a scheme that the Trump administration engaged in last year. The Trump family, according to these public reports, sold a 49% stake in their crypto company to a member of the Emirati royal family. They did so for nearly $500 million. We don't know every detail of this transaction. We do know that the Trump family received $187 million from that transaction, a payday, entangling the president's financial interests with a foreign country. And months later, we know that the Trump administration approved a crypto deal with the UAE that included transferring advanced U.S. technology and AI chips. Mr. Speaker, this is corruption, plain and simple. It is the prioritization of personal profit over the national security interests of our country, the country we all love so dearly. It is wrong. It is immoral. And my colleagues on the other side of the aisle say nothing. Worse, some of them defend this conduct, notwithstanding that they know it is unlawful, that it is violative of our Constitution. We have an emoluments clause, Mr. Speaker, for a reason. The Foreign Emoluments Clause was one of the few provisions to survive and be transferred from the Articles of Confederation to the Constitution in 1787. It was contemplated for precisely a scenario as this one. George Mason, one of our founding fathers, during the Constitutional Convention, he warned his fellow delegates that if we do not provide against corruption, our government will soon be at an end. His words, they are as true today as they were when he said them 240 some odd years ago. It is shameful, the lack of courage from my Republican colleagues. It is repugnant to the constitutional order that we all have been sworn to defend, to protect, to vindicate. So the question I have, Mr. Speaker, for my Republican colleagues, for every American of good faith is, when is enough enough? How many sweetheart
Gentleman's
deals
time has
will
expired.
Republicans refuse
Gentleman's
to condemn?
time has expired.
The corruption must end, Mr. Speaker.
Expired.
The corruption must end.
Gentleman is no longer recognized. The chair reminds members not to refer to the persons in the gallery. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Bean, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let's go back to the year 1919. We had just 48 states. World War I had just ended, but we called it the Great War because we didn't know there was going to be another. Charlie Chaplin had just released a short silent film called Sunnyside. Before talking pictures would be all the rage, in this very chamber, the House voted to send the 19th Amendment, giving women the right to vote, to the states for ratification. Today, Mr. Speaker, I rise to celebrate the 106th birthday of someone born that year, an American hero named Hazel Wamble of Jacksonville, Florida, who is today one of our nation's oldest living veterans. Here she is, surrounded by friends and family. Born on Christmas Eve in 1919, Hazel would go on to serve her country with extraordinary courage in World War II. Hazel enlisted in the Navy Reserves and served as an operating room nurse at U.S. naval hospitals from Portsmouth to Newport and even overseas in Bermuda. In the darkest days of the war, she answered her country's call with the steady hands and a nurse's calm demeanor, holding the line not with a rifle, but with a life-saving skill and unwavering resolve. She earned the World War II Victory Ribbon and the American Theater Ribbon, continuing her service to our nation until her medical discharge in 1953. At 106 years young, Hazel is not a page in our history book. She's a living chapter of American courage. Her life reflects a generation shaped by sacrifice, strengthened by service, and sustained by quiet resolve. Mr. Speaker, we honor Hazel Wamble, not only for the years she has lived, but the example she has set. Today, we celebrate an American who continues to inspire us all more than a century after her journey began. Happy 106th birthday, Hazel. America is very proud of you. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Acosta, for 5 minutes. Without objection.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to bring attention to a serious and I think growing public safety and public health concern that I think requires congressional action. That's the operation of illegal and unregulated biological laboratories that we see in communities throughout our country. I urge my colleagues to join me in supporting legislation that I've introduced that was responsible from the committee that made a series of recommendations, House Committee, preventing illegal laboratories and protecting public health and stopping health threats. Many of us became aware in the San Joaquin Valley about this issue when in 2023, an illegal biolab was discovered operating in my district in Reedley, California. Local officials uncovered a clandestine operation storing biological materials, laboratory equipment, and medical waste, and dangerous pathogens like malaria, like COVID, like HIV, and thousands of laboratory mice in unsafe conditions, all inside a warehouse located near residential areas. It was not a licensed facility. It was operating in the shadows without proper licensing or permits. And why? Ostensibly, the reason was to develop medical kits for COVID testing and for pregnancy testing. But clearly that was not the case. Local authorities initially lacked the clear tools and resources to determine what hazards they were dealing with or how to safely respond. The situation placed local law enforcement officers, code enforcement staff, and nearby residents at serious risk. It required coordination of local, state, and federal agencies to fully assess the threat and dismantle this operation, and it was slow in coming. Now, over the weekend, some of you have noted probably a national story in Las Vegas where there was the reported of a discovery of a new lab, and that materials are under investigation and related to the biolab, the illegal biolab that was created in 2023 in Reedley, California. This does not surprise me. We cannot assume that communities across the country are immune from similar risks. Many jurisdictions simply do not have the expertise, federal support needed to quickly identify and respond to unauthorized biological operations. And that's why I've introduced the legislation based upon committee recommendations. Bipartisan legislation aimed at strengthening federal coordination, improving oversight, helping close regulatory blind spots, and allowing authorizing facilities that have allowed unauthorized facilities to operate undetected. This will, we hope, ensure local communities have the access and the resources necessary when a biological threat emerges. Too often, local officials are asking, who do we call? Who has the authority? Who has the expertise? Our legislation helps answer those questions before another emergency unfolds. First responders should not have to walk into an unknown biological environment without clear federal support. Parents should not have to worry about hazard materials being stored in facilities next door to schools and residential areas. Communities deserve transparency and safeguards, whether the incident occurs in California, Nevada, or anywhere else in the country. This is important that we protect our constituents from a larger crisis. The legislation would strengthen oversight, coordination, and respond mechanisms that can prevent the confusion and reduce the risks. I urge my members on both sides of the aisle to review these two pieces of legislation and to become co-sponsors. Together we can ensure that federal agencies, state authorities, and local communities are better equipped to address this unauthorized biological operations that would prevent threats in their areas. Public demands that we provide preparedness, and preparedness demands action. Let me also thank local officials that acted responsibly when they were first determined they had a problem. Code Officer Jesselyn Harper from the City of Reedley, City Manager Nicole Ziba, Mayor of the City, Mayor Tuttle, and the City Council, and Supervisor Nathan Massig. All of these work together with our office to, in fact, act on the situation in Reedley, California. I urge that we act on this legislation so that people around the country can feel safe from any kind of illegal biological labs that may crop up in their communities. Together we can close these gaps, support the communities, and keep our constituents safe. I yield back the balance of my time.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Bacon, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to recognize Beth Ragland, who I call my honorary mother, and a remarkable Nebraskan who is celebrating her 90th birthday this week. Beth represents the spirit of our district. After the passing of her husband, Ken, she chose not to slow down, but to keep moving forward with a purpose. She returned to the classroom, pursued her long-held interest in law, and earned a degree with a perfect 4.0 grade point average. She went on to serve as an intern at the Sarpy County Courthouse, where her curiosity and work ethic stood out immediately. I know firsthand that the county attorney from Sarpy, Lee Polikoff, values her hard work and support. Beth is an inspiration to her fellow students. She reminded them and all of us that learning, service, and ambition never end at any stage of life. Her unyielding spirit inspires us all to work hard for whatever we desire, and her generosity, resilience, Christian spirit, and joy for learning continue to uplift everyone around her. On behalf of Nebraska's 2nd District, I wish Beth Ragland a very happy 90th birthday and thank her for being such a powerful example of perseverance and purpose, and my friend. Mr. Speaker, in recognition of Black History Month, I rise today to honor 2 community leaders and 2 outstanding youth for their contributions to the 2nd Congressional District of Nebraska. Brenda Constable has been described as a pure force, a trailblazer, a fighter, and a leader who has paved the way for so many in Omaha. As a prominent politician and community leader from North Omaha, she has established a historic career marked by several firsts for African American women in Nebraska. She was the first African American woman to serve on the Omaha City Council and president of the Omaha School Board, and first to serve in the Nebraska unicameral. She served on the Omaha Board of Education for 11 years and is president of the National Caucus of Black School Board Members and state senator for the 11th Legislative District. Council has held leadership roles in many organizations, such as the Urban League of Nebraska, North Omaha Community Care Council, and United Way of the Midlands. Ms. Council has been married to her husband, Arthur, for 40 years. Together, they have one son and 5 grandchildren. Fred Conley is a pioneering figure in Nebraska politics, recognized as the first African American elected to the Omaha City Council. His career, spanning over 50 years, is defined by breaking racial barriers and advocating for the revitalization of North Omaha. Raised in Omaha, Mr. Conley is a veteran of the U.S. Air Force. His political career was born from community activism, specifically the right for district-based voting. Prior to the city's removal from at-large elections, a system that historically marginalized black candidates, Conley ran for the city council twice. Following the transition to district elections in 1981, Mr. Conley was elected to represent North Omaha and dedicated his efforts towards infrastructure and economic development. His leadership was recognized by his peers, who elected him city council president. In 1988, Mr. Conley served as Omaha's first African-American acting mayor. Mr. Conley's legacy includes the enforcement of fair housing laws and the fiscal reclamation of community landmarks. He was instrumental in the naming of the Malcolm X Park and was supporting Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. His continued civic work through service on the Papio, Missouri River National Resources District Board and as founding member of 100 Black Men of Omaha leaves a great mark in our city. Mr. Conley and his wife Teresa have 3 children and have resided in the same North Omaha district. They've dedicated themselves for over 40 years. Ursel Banks IV exemplifies resilience in the face of adversity. Despite its significant academic disruptions caused by chronic battle with sickle cell disease, Banks utilized mentorship from 100 Black Men of Omaha to regain his academic standing. He's a dedicated member of the chorus, drill team, and marching band. Mr. Banks is an unstoppable force who transformed health challenges into an opportunity for personal and academic growth. Mara Johnson Anthony is a high-achieving high school student who maintains a 4.0 GPA with AP courses. She balances academic rigor with leadership in volleyball, the art club, and Girls Inc. Eureka program. Her extensive history of community service includes the Open Door Mission and organizing gift drives for overseas troops and local seniors. Ms. Anthony is noted for her compassionate leadership and is a role model for her peers. I greatly admire these leaders in the 2nd District of Nebraska. They make our district better and our community better. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Ohio, Ms. Sykes, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This week marks 3 years since a Norfolk Southern train derailed in East Palestine, Ohio. 3 years since toxic chemicals burned in the sky. Families were forced from their homes, and a small town became a warning sign for what happens when corporate negligence meets congressional inaction. For the people of East Palestine, this anniversary is not symbolic. It is personal, and it is ongoing, and it is a constant reminder of a Congress who continues to put profits and corporations over people. From the very beginning, I have shown up for this community. I don't represent East Palestine, Ohio, but within weeks of the derailment, I traveled there and I met with residents. I pressed FEMA, the EPA, the CDC, Health and Human Services, and the Department of Transportation for answers and resources. I helped secure an EPA order forcing Norfolk Southern, not taxpayers, to pay for the cleanup and remediation. And when families were told that they may be taxed on disaster relief, I fought to change the law and succeeded. In 2024, President Joe Biden signed the East Palestine Tax Relief Act. That is what accountability looks like. That is what results look like. But 3 years later, the most important question remains unanswered. What has Congress done to prevent this from ever happening again to East Palestine or any other American city? And the answer is not enough. That is why this week I'm introducing the Railroad Safety and Accountability Act to protect labor and public interest voices in rail safety decisions, voices federal regulators have tried to push aside. And that's why I continue fighting for passage of the Bipartisan Rail Act. led by Democrats and Republicans representing Ohio. It is one of the most comprehensive rail safety proposals before Congress. The bill would require two-person train crews, increase inspections, especially for trains carrying hazardous materials, strengthen emergency notification so first responders are not left in the dark, raise penalties for safety violations, and address the exact equipment failures that caused the East Palestine train derailment. The RAIL Act is supported by rail workers, local governments, and bipartisan lawmakers, Democrats and Republicans in and out of Ohio. And yet, for 2 consecutive Congresses, House Republican leadership has refused to even give the bill a hearing. That is not gridlock, that is a decision, and a terrible one at that, a decision to put profits over people. Since the derailment, President Trump, Vice President Vance, members of the cabinet, Ohio Republicans have all visited East Palestine, held press conferences, and promised action. But here's the reality. 3 years later, this Republican House has not passed a single rail safety law to prevent another East Palestine. And not even that, not just a law passed, there hasn't even been a hearing. On February 3rd, 2025, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy made the following statement. In partnership with Trump-Vance administration and Congress, U.S. DOT will work to advance rail safety. As President Trump has pledged, we will ensure the people of East Palestine are not forgotten, and we will use every resource to prevent other communities from enduring what they experienced. During a transportation and infrastructure hearing last year, I asked Secretary Duffy directly what concrete steps are being taken to stop another derailment like this one. I asked him directly and specifically, had he worked with the chair of the committee to move forward any legislation? His answer was no. Further, he said he talked about it on Fox News before anyone else. But here's a news flash for Secretary Duffy and House Republicans. Talking on television does not make trains safer. Talking on television does not make our communities safer. Talking on television does not do what East Palestinian residents have access to do for over 3 years. Press conferences do not replace legislation, and communities cannot rebuild on empty words. Meanwhile, large corporations continue to resist stronger national safety rules and real accountability while pursuing massive corporate expansion and relying on congressional inaction to protect its bottom line. Monitoring the damage after a disaster matters, but monitoring alone is not prevention. Studying the aftermath is not the same as fixing the cause. And Mr. Speaker, the contrast is clear. I have legislated, I have shown up, I have questioned those in power and refused to let East Palestine be forgotten. Others have toured the site, issued statements, and moved on while blocking the very reforms that would keep another town from becoming another headline and a disaster. 3 years later, East Palestine has heard plenty of promises, many pledges, but Congress and the administration have not delivered the safety laws to stop the next disaster. East Palestine deserves action. America deserves action. We deserve accountability. We deserve a Congress that puts people over profits, and I will keep fighting until that happens. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to call for Congress to act with urgency to address the alarming news that we have just heard from Las Vegas of the discovery of yet another illegal, dangerous biolab run by Chinese nationals. In 2023, when the secret lab in Reedley, California came to light, thanks to the tremendous efforts of local officials there, I gave several speeches on this floor calling attention to the danger this posed to all Americans. I noted that we don't know how many similar such labs might be out there. After I requested an investigation, the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party reached a similar conclusion, that we don't know what other such labs might be out there. Well, unfortunately, it turned out to be true that we had reason for concern, because the lab that was just discovered in Las Vegas is run by the same individuals, but in the same sham LLC as the one that was uncovered in Reedley. What's more, officials described there materials and equipment that are consistent with the operation that was going on in Reedley. Commercial grade freezers and refrigerators, equipment for processing biological materials, thousands of vials, which are now under examination from the FBI. In Reedley, the pathogens that were discovered included E. coli, Ebola, malaria, HIV, tuberculosis, and we have every reason to believe that these same dangerous pathogens have been found in this latest Las Vegas lab. But the question still remains, Mr. Speaker, how many other such labs are out there? As my colleague from Fresno, Mr. Costa, just said on this floor, many local communities simply don't have the ability to uncover these things on their own. That's why we need a national framework. We need national resources. We need more national oversight, and that's precisely what my bill, co-authored together with Mr. Costa, a bipartisan bill, will do. So I'm calling today for an immediate markup of this legislation so we can get it passed through the House, signed into law, and protect our communities. Mr. Speaker, I wanted to provide a brief update on California high-speed rail, which thankfully in an overwhelming bipartisan vote, this House just voted to cut funding off for, and the President just signed that legislation into law. We are also now raising questions about what has happened to the $17 billion that has already been spent, and whether perhaps there might be fraud at issue, or at least waste or a lack of diligence in the use of taxpayer funds. I don't think it's any coincidence that as these efforts ramp up, the legislature is now considering a bill, which the governor himself provided language for in a budget trailer bill, seeking to keep records related to high-speed rail secret, seeking to make it so this particular project it has a greater ability to keep information secret than anything else in the public domain in California. It just goes to show you how desperate the political leaders in California are, starting with the governor, to avoid any accountability here. The governor, for his part, by the way, yesterday held a big ceremony with much hoopla about a supposed milestone for high-speed rail, which is to say the completion of a single railhead in Kern County. Now, I'll remind the governor that this is the year 2026. The high-speed rail project was supposed to be complete, having a full-fledged high-speed rail system from Los Angeles to San Francisco 6 years ago in 2020. And yet we're supposed to get excited about the completion of a single railhead in 2026? Mr. Speaker, after 17 years and $17 billion, there still has not been any track laid for this project. The New York Times estimated that it won't be finished this century at the current pace. Even the rosiest, most optimistic projections of the authorities are that by 2045, almost 20 years from now, we might have a line that goes from Gilroy to Palmdale, which would mean that if you wanted to go from LA to San Francisco, you'd have to take one transit system 2 hours, get off that, get on the high-speed rail, then get off that in Gilroy and take another transit system 2 hours to get into San Francisco. A 6-hour trip with 3 transit systems in 2045 that you could do today in 1 hour on Southwest Airlines. Mr. Speaker, we have cut off federal funding for this boondoggle. It is time for the state to do the same and stop wasting the precious dollars of our hardworking taxpayers. I yield back.
Recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the service of the Orange Fire Chief, Sean Dimitropoulos, who is retiring from the city of Orange after 30 years of stellar service. Chief Dimitropoulos began his career in 1995 and worked his way up to be fire chief. In addition to serving our community, Chief Dimitropoulos also stepped up to serve our great country by serving on FEMA's Task 5 force that included a 20-day deployment to support Hurricane Katrina victims. Chief Dimitropoulos has always led by example by dedicating his life to keeping City of Orange safe. Sean, congratulations on your well-deserved retirement. And Sean, Thank you for your service. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the heroic actions of my neighbor, Otoniel Gomez. Mr. Gomez lives in Santa Ana with his family. On December 5th, tragedy struck. The Gomez family woke up to the smell of smoke. Otoniel jumped out of a second-story window to escape the fire. Then, without missing a beat, he grabbed ladders to help his wife, children climb to safety. Thanks to his bravery and quick thinking, the entire Gomez family, including their dog Laika, escaped without injury. That night, Mr. Gomez did show us what true bravery is all about. Otoniel, I pray that your family continues to recover from the loss of your home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the legacy of Doris Ann Hirota Derleth. Doris was a Santa Ana resident, the youngest of 7, and she was born at the beginning of the Great Depression in Rochester, New York in 1932. She went on to attend nursing school in Chicago, where she met her husband, Tomio, where they both began their life of service to others. In 1965, Doris and Tomio bought their home in Santa Ana, California, where they raised 8 children, countless grand and grandchildren. And it was in this same house on January 14th that Doris passed away at the age of 93. Doris was surrounded by her family, sending her back to heaven, where they all know she came. Doris, your legacy memory will live on with your family. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the legacy of World War II and Korean War veteran Howard Cook. During World War II, Howard served in the Army's elite 10th Mountain Division, America's only mountain and winter warfare fighting unit. This unit, the 10th Mountain Elite, was formed to defeat the Nazis who were entrenched high up in the snowy mountains of Italy. This unit, they were skiers, champions, mountain climbers, European mountaineers. And after intensive training atop the Colorado Rockies, they climbed Italy's Riva Ridge and defeated the Nazi troops in a surprise attack, but not without paying a heavy price. Nearly 1,000 soldiers from the 10th Mountain Division were killed, and some 4,000 were wounded. After 4 months of fighting the Germans, they were successful, and the Germans surrendered. Howard lived to be 101 years old, making his final journey to heaven just last month. And I say to you, Howard, my very good friend, your memory will live on, and your heroism will continue to inspire all of us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Rose, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday, President Trump signed a funding bill into law that did more than just end a partial government shutdown. It corrected a serious wrong. Buried deep inside the funding bill that the Senate passed and sent to us last November was a hidden provision that never should have seen the light of day. It was quietly inserted without transparency, without debate, and without notice to House leadership. It allowed a handful of United States senators to sue taxpayers for the rogue actions of the last administration. It enabled them to seek $500,000 for having their phone data seized by the Biden FBI, $500,000 per occurrence. This could have resulted in millions of tax dollars lining the pockets of a select group of United States senators. No doubt they were the architects of this provision. That's not accountability, that's corruption. Nevertheless, Leader Thune and these senators forced the House to swallow that provision in order to reopen the government after 43 long days. Families across the country were hurting. Pay for our troops was in jeopardy. Our airports were facing serious safety risks. In the meantime, congressional Democrats were referring to the shutdown as leverage. Ultimately, House Republicans voted to fund the government and end the suffering. However, we never lost sight of undoing the self-serving money grab from taxpayers by a select group of senators. Hours before our vote, I introduced the first standalone bill to kill that provision. I also co-sponsored Representative Austin Scott's legislation, which achieved the same outcome. It passed the House unanimously. Yet, just like the SAVE Act, the bill sat on Leader Thune's desk week after week, month after month. So I introduced a resolution that would have enabled Speaker Johnson to argue the unconstitutionality of the Senate payday provision and asked the courts to strike it down. I even attempted to insert a repeal amendment into the National Defense Authorization Act. But when we sent our funding bill to the Senate last week, we gave Senate leadership a taste of their own medicine and forced them to choose between the Senate payday or reopening the government. Let me be very clear. I support real accountability. Last October, I signed on to a letter urging Attorney General Pam Bondi to launch a criminal investigation into the activities of Special Counsel Jack Smith and consider possible Fourth Amendment violations during Operation Arctic Frost. That deserves scrutiny. That deserves answers. It doesn't merit restitution paid for by hardworking waitresses, truck drivers, and small business owners. Hardworking taxpayers shouldn't be punished to put millions in the pockets of a select group of senators. The Tennesseans I represent have suffered enough because of the many failed policies of the last administration, and they shouldn't be forced to pay more. The House prevailed in putting a stop to this. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Texas, Ms. Johnson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to introduce the Qualified Immunity Accountability Act because no one is above the law or the Constitution. Across this country, we are witnessing a dangerous pattern. Federal law enforcement officers, specifically ICE agents, operating with near total impunity. We have seen constitutional rights violated, and we have seen communities terrorized. We have seen American citizens harmed and tragically killed without meaningful accountability and reform. And time again, the Department of Homeland Security has failed to act or rein in its agents. This is not how we uphold the rule of law in this country. Qualified immunity protects government officials, including police officers, from being held liable in civil lawsuits. Qualified immunity was meant to be a good faith protection to protect good faith officers from frivolous lawsuits. But that is not how it functions today. In practice, qualified immunity has become a get-out-of-jail-free card, a legal shield that blocks accountability even when an officer violates someone's constitutional rights or uses excessive force when none was needed. And I know this because as an attorney, I have tried these exact cases in court. My bill changes that. The Qualified Immunity Accountability Act lowers the standard for prosecution so federal law enforcement can be held accountable when they violate an individual's civil rights. It makes clear that no federal agent, ICE included, is above the Constitution, and when rights are violated, there will be real consequences. This bill simply reaffirms what is in the Constitution. It protects law enforcement who act in good faith, while ensuring that those who abuse their power cannot hide behind a doctrine that was never intended to excuse misconduct. Accountability strengthens public safety. It builds trust between communities and police. Proper accountability does not weaken this. There are so many brave law enforcement officers who do their jobs, serve their communities with honor and distinction. But unfortunately, we have had some bad apples who are spoiling the bunch, and in doing so are actually making it unsafe for law enforcement to do their jobs. Across the country, ICE agents have conducted raids without warrants, detained U.S. citizens, used excessive force, and torn families apart, often with little oversight and no consequences. Communities are left traumatized, afraid to report crimes, afraid to seek medical care, and afraid to leave their homes to live their daily lives. This is not public safety. This is government-sanctioned fear. When an agency can violate the Constitution and face no accountability at all, that agency is not enforcing the law, it is undermining it. The Constitution guarantees due process. It guarantees equal protection. It guarantees freedom from unreasonable searches and seizures. Those rights are not optional, and they are not discretionary. They are not suggestions. They do not disappear because someone wears a badge. This bill sends a simple message. If you violate someone's civil rights, you will be held accountable no matter who you are. I originally submitted this bill as an amendment to the ICE funding bill that was voted on yesterday, but Republicans in this House refused to even have any amendments on this important issue even considered. It is clear that they want to continue to give Kristi Noem and Donald Trump the green light to continue terrorizing our communities and have untrained ICE agents run rogue, killing American citizens. This is not how trust is rebuilt, and this is not how we restore faith in the rule of law. And that is not how we honor the oath that every public servant takes to support and defend the Constitution. Justice can never be conditional, and accountability can never be optional. I urge my colleagues to support the Qualified Immunity Accountability Act, pass the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, and stand on the side of the Constitution, the rule of law, and the basic principle that justice must apply equally to everyone. Thank you, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the fine gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Carter, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize and honor the retirement of Mr. Ronnie Fender after 44 years of extraordinary judicial service to Cook County, Georgia. For more than 4 decades, Judge Fender has served with integrity, with patience, and an unwavering commitment to justice as a justice of the peace and as a magistrate judge. His courtroom has been a place not only of law, but of fairness and respect for all who appear before him. Beyond the bench, Judge Fender was an educator who shaped minds with the same care and wisdom he brought to the law. His influence extends far beyond written rulings. It lives on in the countless people he taught, mentored, and served. Though retiring from full-time service, Judge Fender will continue contributing as a senior magistrate judge on an as-needed basis and as a court bailiff. We are grateful for that continued dedication. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the invaluable role of pharmacists in supporting older adults as they navigate the difficulties of medication management. This expertise is especially vital as we age, when new prescriptions, changing doses, and potential drug interactions become more common, influenced by slower metabolism, reduced kidney function, and heightened drug sensitivity. Pharmacists, after 6 to 8 years of rigorous training, including a Doctor of Pharmacy degree, serve as trusted experts in how medications work, interact, and affect aging bodies. Through services like medication therapy management, they review entire regimens, including prescriptions, over-the-counter products, vitamins, and supplements, to identify duplicates, unnecessary drugs, or risky combinations that could lead to dizziness, falls, or confusion. Pharmacists ensure medications are effective and taken correctly while offering simplified routines, clear explanations of benefits and side effects, adherence tools such as pill organizers and synchronized refills, and convenient delivery options. Pharmacists provide accessible guidance anytime, empowering informed decisions that promote safety, independence, and healthy aging. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise here today to recognize the monuments being dedicated to the ancient Scottish Rite Valley of Savannah, Georgia. The birth of the Scottish Rite dates back to 1801, when the Supreme Court of the 33rd degree for the United States of America and the first Supreme Council in the world was established. The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry seeks to better its members and strengthen their communities by teaching and promoting brotherly love, tolerance, and truth. The Rite embraces strong social, moral, and spiritual values that include compassion and dedication to God, family, and country. These monuments serve as symbols of all the values of Scottish Rite stands for. Thank you to the generous donors, illustrious brother Albert Nelson Jr. and Lady Nellie, Dr. and Sir Knight James Arnold and Lady Barbara, illustrious brother Charles White and Lady Nordine, and brother Morgan Durst and Lady Pam for their kind contributions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize science teacher Bill Eswine, who has decided to retire at the end of the school year after 54 years of service to Savannah Country Day School. Mr. Eswine was originally hired in 1972, and through his enthusiasm, adaptability, and love for teaching, has taught science to generations of children. His impact is visible across the school's campus and the Savannah community, serving as director of the Coastal Ecology Camp and caretaker to various campus educational gardens. Beyond Country Day, Mr. Eswine has been recognized as Teacher of the Year and honored by organizations such as the Garden Club of America, the Georgia Independent School Association, and the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. His commitment to education and fondness for learning has made a lasting difference in Savannah. Congratulations, Mr. Eswine, on a well-earned retirement. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. DeSaulnier, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to highlight the dedicated work of the staff that I get to work with and who work for me. Mr. Speaker, I've served my community in the Bay Area as a city council member, a mayor, a county supervisor, a state assembly member, a state senator, and now as a member of the House of Representatives. In all of those years, one of the keys to our success and our engagement has been the dedicated public servants who have worked for me in all of those capacities. They are the people I want to talk about today. At community centers, healthcare clinics, schools, small businesses, town halls, and more, our staff and I encountered tens of thousands of Californians. At these stops, I heard from families across California 10 about the urgent need to lower the cost of living, make everyday essentials more affordable. We heard from healthcare providers and patients about the looming harm of cuts from the big ugly bill to Medicaid, called Medi-Cal in California, and the Affordable Care Act. We heard from students and teachers about the growing need for federal support for education and specifically for special education. We heard from seniors worried about threats to their Social Security and Medicare. And overwhelmingly, we heard from constituents about the deep concerns of the actions of the current administration, both here in our communities, in our country, and abroad. Day in and day out, our team and I answered phones and read constituent emails and letters. Over the past year, we registered and responded to more than 170,000 constituent opinions in our district. When constituents call our offices here in Washington, in Walnut Creek, California, and Antioch, California, they speak to real people. We answer the phone. Sometimes that person is even me, which has led to some interesting conversations. Every single constituent receives a written response quickly. One of the statistics I am most proud of this year is that we hosted 23 town halls. Under the lawlessness and the chaos of the current administration, town halls and community meetings are more crucial than ever. Since coming to Congress, I have hosted almost 300 community town halls. And in 2025, we hosted more town halls than in any prior year and connected with thousands of constituents across our community at these events. Outside of town halls, our team is still crisscrossing our district. They attended more than 370 community events in 2025 alone. Sometimes the only people who ever interconnect with congressional congressional members' offices is because they need help desperately with a federal agency. We're the last people they call desperately for help. Thanks to our casework team's compassion and persistence, we helped nearly 1,500 constituents in 2025, assisting with everything from immigration to Social Security. Here in Washington, D.C., our legislative team was also hard at work. Last year, I authored 11 pieces of legislation and sponsored more than 200 bills. We used all of the tools at our disposal to hold the administration accountable in sending a voice for our constituents from 3,000 miles away here to this chamber, sending dozens of oversight inquiries, joining amicus briefs, and more to protect our constituents. Mr. Speaker, Tip O'Neill famously once said, "All politics is local." I want to thank my staff for living that admonition from Speaker O'Neill. Altogether, I hope this work helps people back home see that this House, that Congress, even in the minority with this administration, can work hard for you. We look forward to continuing to serve you this coming year. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Maryland, Ms. McLean Delaney, for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today as tensions across this country and in this very chamber have reached a boiling point. Yesterday, many of us, freshman members like myself, and those members with decades in this chamber, faced one of the hardest votes any of us will ever take. We were forced to decide on a vote that a bill that bundled funding for ICE and DHS with the remainder of our government appropriations. This is because we all know, Republicans and Democrats alike, that this administration is using ICE as a taxpayer-funded paramilitary force that's holding itself above the law with no transparency, accountability, or guardrails. And we see the carnage every day and the consequences everywhere. Federal immigration agents are terrorizing our communities, including last month in Minnesota, where two 37-year-olds, both Renee Good and Alex Preddy, were killed in separate shootings during the 9-week siege and occupation of Minnesota. Now, 2 weeks ago, I traveled with 27 other House members to Minnesota to hear at a field hearing firsthand the accounts from the victims and the advocates about ICE's abuses. And I was jarred, and I'm still troubled by their testimonies, including vans set up to stop all passerbyers for their papers, the dragging of a pregnant woman through the streets, the seizure of an elderly grandmother with asylum pulled from her car and leaving 2 grandchildren in a running car in ice-cold temperatures in the back seat, the shackling and detention of observers who merely honked horn or blew whistles or took pictures, and detention holding pens of up to 50 people without adequate food, water, or bathroom breaks. Now, I stand with Minnesota because what's happening in Minnesota has cruel consequences everywhere, including in my home state of Maryland. In my district, Maryland 6, the administration covertly just acquired a $102 million warehouse in Williamsport to build a 1,500-bed processing center with no public or congressional input. ICE Acting Director Todd Lyons likens these warehouses in Williamsport and nationwide to Amazon Prime, but for living human beings. Let me be clear. People are not packages. Let me say it again. People are not packages. I stand with Governor Moore and Maryland's Democratic delegation to fight these plans, and I laud community leaders and those across the U.S. who are mobilizing to block these warehouses and other detention centers, which are really private prisons. A viral video surfaced such ungodly conditions within ICE's Baltimore field office, a facility where my 6 district constituents and other Marylanders are being detained. For over 2 months, I sought to gain access to this facility to conduct a congressional oversight tour to see my constituents. Last Friday, after multiple unexplained cancellations by ICE, I finally gained access. What I found was truly disturbing, and my team and I are still processing the horrendous conditions we saw in a holding site for temporary detention of 12 hours, but was stretched for multiple days. Detainees had precious little due process. They were forced to sleep on thin mats with foil blankets. They had a communal sink and toilet. I saw individuals behind thick walls signaling, rubbing their bellies that they were hungry, and they were repeatedly, after repeatedly pressing ice, I also confirmed that the viral video was true. I asked to also speak with these detainees, but they would not allow me. But I refused to stay silent. In this chamber, we have to unite around a shared principle. We all want our laws and immigration laws to be enforced, but transparently, fairly, humanely, and in accordance with our values. And I want to make clear where I stand. I did not and will not vote on any bill that funds ICE until the American people and Congress have clear answers and meaningful change. What we need is transparency and accountability, starting with the impeachment of Homeland Security Kristi Noem. Time and again, she has proved her incompetency. And I'm also joining with my colleagues to co-sponsor legislation including banning ICE agents from wearing masks, requiring body cams on law enforcement agencies, and not deporting American citizens, as well as respecting constitutional laws and due process. These are common sense measures we should and all and must support. In closing, this is not about values, but who we are as a country. On my exit from the ICE Baltimore facility, the career DHS employee said, "This is not who I am, but what I do." I retorted, "What we do is who we are." Our country deserves transparency, humanity, and a respect for our constitutional laws and individual rights. And I hope my Republican colleagues have the courage to stand up. Enough is enough. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Wilson, for 2 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the April tax deadline approaches, I'm grateful that millions of Americans will keep larger tax cuts, thanks to President Donald Trump signing the Working Families Tax Cut Act into law. There will be, based on the great law, that big, beautiful bill, average tax refunds are projected to rise $1,000 this year in tax savings, with families keeping their own money. These savings come from no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security for most recipients, and a deduction for Made in America auto loan interest. With the leadership of President Donald Trump, with the leadership of Speaker Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Republicans allow families, workers, and seniors to keep their own earnings. In conclusion, God bless our troops. As the global war on terrorism continues, Trump is reinstituting peace through strength, revealing war criminal Putin lies, insulting Trump and mocking Trump, as this is Ukraine Week across America, around the world, supporting Ukrainian patriots successfully succeeding as they keep and defend a sovereign Ukraine, defeating war criminal Putin from resurrecting the failed Soviet Union, as we also support the adoption and promotion of fair and free elections in the Republic of Georgia, and we rejoice for the people of Syria that the Assad dictatorship has been removed, and we thank President Donald Trump for his leadership to remove the dictatorship in Venezuela of Maduro. The people of Venezuela now have an opportunity for freedom and liberty. The people of Syria, because of Donald Trump, give Syria a chance. It's an exciting time in world history as we have a president who stands up for freedom and democracy, for peace through strength. I yield back.
Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the chair declares the House is in recess until noon today.